Broadcasting from the Symphony studio in Marietta, Georgia, it's time for the Technology Harmony podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. Tune in every week as we spotlight the very best minds in our industry. Now, here are your hosts.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 9th episode of the Technology Harmony podcast, brought to you by Symphony Technology Solutions. In this series, we speak with and learn from the top thought leaders in the property technology space. I am one of your hosts, the marketing manager here at Symphony, Katie Galley, and I am, of course, joined by our president of the Internet of Things division, Trey Gaskins. How are you doing, Trey?
I'm doing great, Katie. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm super excited for our conversation today to dive in. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready.
Ready. Born ready. All right. So today in the Symphony studio with us, we have the president of Guefen Construction Services, Joe Kummer. How are you doing, Joe?
Great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, Joe. So just to maybe get to know you a little bit, Joe, and your background, can you share with us a little bit about your professional journey and how you got the job that you have today?
Sure. So I started off at University of Missouri, got a degree in electrical engineering, and at the time worked doing construction for the university. And after doing a brief stint as an actual electrical engineer, once I graduated, I went back into the construction field and have spent roughly the last 25 years or so in the construction business as essentially a commercial contractor. About a year ago, I joined the Guefen family of companies as the president of Guefen Construction Services to build our projects.
Wow. And so, early on, what made you decide you wanted to go from electrical engineering back into construction?
It was just more interesting, more exciting. I liked being out in the field and making things happen and seeing the progress versus being cooped up, if you will, in an office and just doing paperwork.
Right. That makes sense. And of course, leading you to where you are today with Guefen. And so, Joe, can you tell us what Guefen does?
So Guefen is a developer of both luxury multifamily projects and also student housing at major universities and so forth. And then Guefen Construction Services is the construction arm that actually builds the projects.
Gotcha. And so you are over the construction services arm?
Yes, ma'am.
As president? Awesome. And so as the president, what are your primary roles and responsibilities?
It's everything from assisting through the design process in terms of scheduling, making sure that the building is constructible, doing budgeting, so forth, and then also taking the project, bidding it out to subcontractors, and then administrating that all the way through construction.
So, Joe, we got acquainted when it became apparent that your property was going to need an emergency radio response communication systems, or also called ERCs, sometimes called public safety DAS. I guess I'm pretty sure how I know this, but do you recall how we got introduced? I think one of your consultants introduced us.
Yeah, we were introduced by Henry Pye, who is one of our low voltage consultants. Mm-hmm. And we had gone to him looking for potential solutions because the fire department was not satisfied with the level of radio signal they had inside the building. And we needed to solve that in an expeditious fashion so that we could get the occupancy for the building and get students moved in.
And if you could describe what it's like to work with Symphony, what was your experience like? What was, I know the project went pretty quickly, but just, what would you say about working with Symphony if you were talking to your peers about if they're looking for somebody to help them with their ERCs solution?
It was a very good experience. In the situation we were in, this is not a high-rise type project where we might typically see this type of system. In the past, on the smaller, wood frame buildings, we haven't put these systems in, so it was not something that was contemplated in the initial design, and had to be added more or less at the last minute when the fire department came through and did their walkie-talkie checks, and were unable to get signal in a couple places in the building. The rest of the building appeared to be fine to them, but there were a couple areas. So we wanted to solve that, and we needed to do so quickly because the rest of the building was complete. We reached out to Mr. Pye. He suggested Symphony as a possible solution provider. Got in touch with you, I believe it was.
Yep.
And then talked through the various options on how to get a system in place. So that all went fairly quickly, fairly smoothly because it needed to. We had students ready to move in. You guys designed the system quickly, got the parts ordered, and began installation just as soon as the fire department had approved the system.
So you may not know this, but you were our fastest installation ever so far.
Well, good, and we appreciate that.
Yeah, and we jumped through a lot of hoops, and there was a lot of parallel activities going on, but it was neat to see the design process and the subcontractors and the ordering process and everything lined up, and it went well. You guys were super helpful yourselves. I guess from a future standpoint, what would you recommend to other people about planning for ERCs, whether if they're not sure if they're going to need it or not? Any points jump out at you?
Well, I think that's probably one of the more challenging aspects of the potential need for these systems. The fire marshal for our project actually expressed quite candidly that, generally speaking, they hadn't been enforcing this requirement in the past. They hadn't really been doing this testing, and even though it is part of the fire code, they had not really focused on it. And with the new fire marshal, he was trying to do things the right way and by the book. And so they did the testing and determined that this system was needed. So the first thing I would say is if you're building a new building is to understand what the requirements in that jurisdiction are. And if you're going to need this system, that may require some testing of the site beforehand to see what the existing signal is, and then also understand what the type of building you're building is and whether or not that's going to attenuate that signal to where you're going to need a system like this. And if you are, to design it in up front, not at the last minute.
Right. I know y'all came up with a pretty creative solution with the fire marshal. Can you talk about what because that's the first time we've seen your solution, frankly, in the 25 other states that we're working with. So you had a pretty creative solution to give you a temporary CO. Can you talk about what you worked out with the local jurisdiction?
Yeah, so we had reasonable signal throughout most of the building. We had just really a couple corners that did not have sufficient signal. And so after talking with the fire marshal, we were able to get a temporary certificate of occupancy by providing a bond, essentially guaranteeing that we would complete this system in order to get the final occupancy on the building. So we had to provide a bond. I think it was $200,000 or $300,000, and also share with them that we'd contracted with you for the system, for them to grant the TCO and allow us to start moving people in.
Well, that definitely put a little extra pressure on us, but we didn't mind it. So we're glad it all worked out. Joe, one of the other elements that we didn't do on this project, but Symphony offers a wide variety of solutions from audiovisual, access control, surveillance. What are some of the things that you look for in a low voltage integrator that we can help learn from? Like from putting the president of construction's hat on, what are you looking for when you work with your low voltage operators these days?
Well, we're looking for a combination of things. One is that they put in a complete system, that their proposal be a complete solution, and not rely upon, say, the architect or the engineers who really don't necessarily always understand what the low voltage needs are going to be for a building. So we really want you to put on your design hat and even before we contract, understand the full scope and ensure that it's going to be complete and functional for what we need it to do. That's probably the most important thing. And then secondly, when you're out in the field, really working well with the other trades, coordinating the work in the field, making sure that your rough-in process and so forth is in concert with the other folks and that there's not a delay in the course of construction.
Well, we certainly take that to heart, and we look forward to showing you that on a future project. Joe, just for people that want to get to know you better, I'll turn this back over to Katie right now. But how can they get a hold of you and your company?
Probably the easiest way is go to our website, which is guefen.com, guefen.com.
Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. To learn more about our guest and their company, check out the show notes for the relevant links. If you would like to learn more about us here at Symphony, of course, subscribe to our podcast on our YouTube channel. And don't forget to follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook at Symphony Technology Solutions and on Instagram at Symphony Tech Solutions. Here at Symphony, our ultimate goal is to make harmonious music out of all the technological noise. And we hope today's episode helped in doing just that. See you next time.